Good morning, Roger.
Hello, Dave. We're getting all ready for the class coming up.
Yeah, we'll be ready. I started assembling the manuals for the training manuals for each person yesterday. And yeah, it's coming together nicely.
So what all are we going to be giving them?
Oh, I put together a 3-ring binder. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So it'll have a section and a 3-ring binder so they can add things as they go down the road.
Uh-huh.
And then we'll have handouts, a bunch of them that we'll put in their binder for the class.
What kind of handouts?
Some of it is, so far I've got pictures of the basic tools, pictures of face shields, you know, the ones that we recommend, the ones we don't. I've had questions come up, not just from the lady that contacted you, but others about, well, what kind of tools should I buy and kind of clothes should I wear, what kind of face shields and so on. So trying to just give them on the basis that a picture is worth 1,000 words, pictures of the stuff that we recommend. You can, in some cases you can buy a cheap one, but you'll buy several. You might as well just buy a good one up front.
For sure. Good.
And then some of the material that Tom has given me, I'll start putting that in today and taking excerpts from his write-up. And there's a section on, so the sections will be safety, tools and equipment, wood selections, one that we'll get some. I'm trying to make it, it's pretty elementary with a lot of pictures, because I think that's what they need. It's a faster way to learn. And out of your book that you gave me, I got a lot of pictures from the projects. I haven't printed those out yet, but things like that we can put in there.
What projects do you think we'll do?
Well, I think that little honey dipper is a real easy one. That's what they recommended as the first thing to do.
Uh-huh.
And you can spin it and finish it and, you know, take it home with you easily, and yet anybody can do it. And then I think maybe a tool handle is easy to do. Maybe we give them 3 or 4 ideas and then let them pick what they want to do, I think.
Oh, okay.
It'll somewhat depend on what kind of wood they've got. I've got maybe 15 blanks that are suitable for the class, but I'm gonna call a couple others and see if they've got anything, because in the wood that the club owns, we don't have any that's really spindle oriented. And the few bowl blanks that we have left of the bigger size are not really all that big, you know, maybe 7 inches by 7.
Uh-huh.
Some of those blanks that are left, and I don't know if a 7-inch long is long enough for the course. I guess it probably is, but
Yeah, maybe for a honey dipper might be, but not for a tool handle.
yeah. But I still have some of those planks that I bought from the sawmill guy whose name I can't remember. Where we bought all the blanks. I bought some of those big maple planks, and I could cut some 4x4 longer pieces out of some of that
Okay.
that's left. So
Yeah, it was Ken Bedrick,
what's that?
Milwaukee Hardwoods. That's Ken.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Guy that we work with.
Yeah.
Hey, Larry.
Good morning.
So I woke up at midnight last night and thought I didn't send out the invitation for the Zoom link for this meeting. So that's something
Yeah,
I
you did.
I know I did it 1 in the morning though.
Oh, well, I saw it yesterday. Maybe it was the night before you woke up. There was a link in the letter you sent out with all the dates.
Yeah. Yeah. But usually I send out a very specific one a couple days before.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Hi, Jim.
Good morning.
Hey, Jim.
Good morning.
So we're about to go live with a new website. Hope to do that this weekend. And in the newsletter, we're going to put an article in about photos. So Jim, we're going to take you up on your offer for people to contact you for their photos if they want to put it in their profile.
Okay.
I don't know if you're going to get swamped or if people are going to ignore it.
We'll find out, won't we?
Yeah.
I think I'll recommend is they just go back, ask for 3 or 4 pictures or something like that, rather than 10 years of photos.
That would be appreciated.
The cone of shame. What did she do?
Yeah, well, tries to eat his foot off. He's my bud.
Hey, Mike. Got a request. We're going to go live with a new website this weekend, I hope. So can you give me a list to verify the people that have renewed in the last 30 days?
Okay.
They renewed on the old website. And need to
Oh, yeah.
convert that to the new one. So I've
Yeah,
got
and that record,
I've
that
got a
record-
list. I just want to verify it with people that actually have paid.
okay, and you can't transfer that record directly to the new website?
I can if I know the names.
Oh, okay.
I just need to know the names.
Okay, so I will look through on the old website.
Yeah,
But
I
I
think
guess on PayPal.
yeah, I was going to suggest just look at PayPal and see what renewals we had.
Okay, will do.
Uh, and my email is all screwed up this weekend, so I'm working with Comcast to see if I can get that email fixed. But I haven't gotten any emails in the last 2 days. Actually,
That would
Thursday
be a
night.
relief.
Yeah, but when they come in big.
Now look at it this way, no one's asking you for money.
Hi, Jason.
Morning.
How's the Spirit project coming?
Pretty good. I just delivered 5 of them last week in a couple of stands. So I think I've sold them about 7 so far, maybe 8. So it's going pretty well. Here's one I did out of Western red cedar. This was an old beam. It was very difficult to work with.
Yeah, I can imagine.
How are you doing?
Doing good.
Speaking of projects, Les Daddy got in touch with me the other day. He's looking for someone that he can sort of sublet one of his knife handle projects to. It'd be mostly bandsaw and table saw work. And he asked if I knew if anyone would be interested. It constitute about 1,000 pieces a month. Now, how much it pays, I don't know. I will inquire further on that. But if anyone knows of someone that would be interested in doing that, get in touch.
So what's the job?
It's cutting knife handles. So what they're doing is stabilizing maple and then cutting that into blanks for this knife company. And I think Les is realizing he is no longer young. And, and if he can farm out this sort of work, he'd like to do it. I don't, just put it out there if anyone is interested.
Well, I talked to him as well.
Yeah.
Joel and I are talking about doing some of it for him. He doesn't have his shop built yet. So
No, he
he's
doesn't.
working out of a shipping container
Yes.
and it's not set up to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But he says once he gets the shop built, even then he thinks he would have someone come in once in a while and cut him up on this saw stop.
You know, and they could deliver the wood to whoever's doing it, and set up a delivery date for the handles. Anyway, so I've fulfilled my obligations and made the opportunity public. So
It's really a good request for the guild.
yeah, it is. And as I am not a guilder, so
So I can post it in the
yeah,
forum.
it's flat work. It's not really turning. So
Yeah. Yeah. Just to remind me, could you send me Les's contact information of
yes,
if
okay.
someone's interested, how to contact them?
My Roger list going here.
Hopefully I'll have my email working by this weekend.
Roger, where are we at on communicating to the members on what we have left for wood?
So I think we ought to do that. That should be our project for next week.
Okay.
And I'll send it to our members also, but I think the primary goal is to send it to Cascade and Salem and just get a list of all the contact people for the local clubs.
If you're going to send that out via email, you can attach that flyer that Bill made up.
No, good flyer.
Yeah, he did a good job on that.
Yeah.
As usual.
Yeah, I think Larry is right. The time for cutting prices is not yet. The membership would not be happy with that.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I think the goal number one is we'll ask them to come to us to pick up the wood. And if they can't do that, then we can talk. But I think primarily the way I'll push it is it's a club buy that the club can then sell to their members.
Yeah. And if the club wants to buy a bunch of boxes and open them up and sell them out individually, that's fine too. But we have work and boxes invested in that effort. So
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Right, Dave?
I'm just thinking if the request came to us from someone else, that's what I would do is buy a bunch and then resell it to our members.
yeah. And the box themselves is that's the best buy because you get the variety plus the numbers and the price. Yeah.
They should be able to pay the prices that our members paid
Oh, absolutely.
and still make money at it. But I just wanted to say it's all, I cleaned out a back corner of the shop, so all that wood is stored. It's not in any way a bother to me. It can stay there forever. It won't bother me. But
Well, the option is we build Dave a new annex on his.
no, I'm good. It's completely stored in the back now. It's no longer a bother.
I just see stacks of inventory like that and I see dollar signs.
Well, yeah.
That's the old retailer in me.
Yeah.
You don't leave money sitting in inventory.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have to pay an inventory tax on it at the end of the year. That's
Yeah, that's true.
So Harvey, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for setting it up.
We're sort of talking about you a bit. So you know the wood sale that we've had for the Northwest members. We still have a lot of inventory, and we're going to make that available to all the local clubs.
Oh, nice.
So our thought is to send it out to like Cascade, and with the offer that they can buy as much as they want, and then my thought is we'd sell it to the clubs, and the clubs could resell it to their members.
Okay.
You think that's a workable plan or?
So this is just peculiar to Cascade, but Cascade is currently trying to work through an inventory of walnut that it got from Gobi Walnut.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Hmm,
So it would be an awesome idea in a couple of months. Because and you know, it's great wood, and I'm just not sure whether we lack a Dave who has unlimited storage
yeah.
for
So,
stuff.
well, the walnut blanks on the big side or small side?
They're out of the standard slabs that Gobi cuts. So it depends on what you mean by big. They're like 3.5 inches thick, 3 inches thick, and then of varying sizes. Gobi gave us a couple of slabs and members cut it up,
Uh-huh,
so it varies.
okay. Because the wood that we have is on the smaller side.
And there's very little walnut.
Yeah, very little walnut, if we have any left.
Half a dozen blocks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a nice complementary set of woods. You guys having the North figured woods, largely maple stuff, and us having walnut.
Yeah. Well, I'll send the offer to you guys, and then you can sort of talk about it and see if you want to take us up on it or not. We're hoping to talk to all the local clubs, you know, from Salem to the coast and Vancouver and so on. So,
Yeah, no, that's a good idea.
okay. We got a bunch of other people join. Oh, it is a little bit after 9, so we can get started. I got one question from a fellow who couldn't make it because he's working this weekend, but he said he'd take a look at the recording. He's trying to fill some big inclusions in what he's working on with copper, and he's not happy with the results. He's got some powdered copper that he's used, tried to use fast, real thin, fast CA glue, and wasn't happy with the results. And he was looking for whether there was available something a little bigger copper filler rather than a powder. And I was thinking of the copper that get out of key blank. And I think if I remember right, Dave, I think you said you had used copper to fill something that you're working on and was happy with it.
I used brass from the
Yes.
local key shop.
Okay.
Just mix it in with epoxy, 2-part epoxy, and it worked fine.
Okay.
It isn't as sparkly as what I had hoped it would be when I started out, but it turned out okay. I just went to the local key maker and said, "Do you sell the grindings?" He says, "Nah," and he just handed me a bag full.
Oh,
The key brass is actually a very low copper form of brass. So it doesn't sparkle. It goes more to the tin
Yeah.
green. It's
Yeah,
high tin.
That's exactly what happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And well, on the right wood, that green actually is a very interesting color. Now, the problem with copper powder, I use a lot of it. Not a lot, but I try not to make big holes and things. The trick is if you're gonna fill a large spot, is you do it in layers.
Yeah.
You know, you put it in and you tamp it down and you use the ultra fast CA. Do not use an accelerator. That will make a foamy, bubbly mess that's very interesting, but not what you want. And just fill it that way, you know, with just thin layers of the copper powder. Now, the copper powder comes in different sizes. There's, what's his name? Sawarski is a video out. There's actually one in our library, if we could get to our library. on doing that, but his website is pretty informative. There's 100 grit and 300 grit, and you know the different size, actually using different size copper in the same filling can be beneficial. You know, it's kind of like the rocks and concrete. The big pieces hold the little ones together. So it does work, but the copper powder applied in thin layers for a big hole will work just fine.
So when do you use CA glue and when do you use epoxy on something like that?
I am one who avoids CA glue whenever possible. I respond very badly to it. So if there's a strong wind that I can work outside, I will use CA. Epoxy works okay too, but the problem is the short set epoxies, you need the 24-hour set epoxy for that, just because things settle in a little better over time.
And can you use resin?
I don't see why not. The trick is getting enough of the metal into your carrier that you wind up with a solid metal surface. That's the thing about the CA. The CA will go in and fill the gaps between the particles. But the epoxy and the resin is going to be much thicker. So you don't get the infiltration that you really need.
But if you use epoxy, what you do is typically mix it up and then mix your material in,
Right.
and then trowel it into your crack.
Right.
And I found that if you take a carver, you know, like a V-groove carver, whether it be a manual carving knife or a motorized, you can open up those cracks and make it accept the epoxy embellishment much easier and much cleaner, and you get actually a better look than a little skinny little crack.
Right.
Right. Now, I use primarily CA glue, and I use the technique that we learned in Steve Hatcher's class for inlays. And again, he talks about using, you know, if you have a big hole to fill, you know, do it in layers like Mike was saying, and soak it in CA and in the thin CA glue, and use many layers as you need to, and leave it a little bit proud so you can sand it down.
Yeah. Yeah. But expanding the crack is an important thing, and you can actually add little branches to it and sort of embellish. You know, it's surface augmentation anyway, so make your crack a little more interesting. And tamping it in, if you're gonna put the metal in first and then the CA, it's really important that you get it tamped down, get all the air out of it, and
Yeah.
it works.
Speaking of air, do you ever use a vacuum pump to pull the bubbles out of your epoxy before you pour it in?
I very seldom use epoxy. So, and if you've got an epoxy with an open time that's long enough, sure, why not? If you got a 5-minute epoxy, you're not going to have enough time to you're not going to have enough time to degas the epoxy.
Yeah.
If you use brass, do you need to run a magnet through it to get any steel particles out of it?
That's a good idea. Yeah.
If you get key shavings.
Yeah, because there's all manner of stuff in that. If you actually look at that, there's brass, there's dirt, there's stuff.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
But the key brass is just it's a very low quality brass. It's made to take shape rather than to be the malleable metal that brass is usually thought to be. So the copper is low, the tin is high, and it'll take the shape of the key very sharply, whereas traditional brass wouldn't do that well. So, you know, they didn't make it for our uses.
Has anybody made their own filings? And if so, how'd you do it?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, if you're gonna do it, it's just a bastard file and throw it in the device and just file it off.
Yeah. But you'd be
That or-
surprised how
that
long
or-
it takes to get a pile of shavings.
That or a
Okay,
hacksaw.
You could do it with a hacksaw. You could also do it with a rasp in a drill.
There's a reason they call it a bastard file.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing about filling a big hole is, we have the super thick CA glue option. And I've tried to use that at times, but you start, even the thick one, you still got to do it in layers.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the top will harden, and underneath you still have liquid CA glue.
Yep.
So,
putting down a layer of coffee grounds and CA glue, if you're not going to have, if the other side's not going to be exposed, who cares? And that fills in very well, basically makes new wood.
yeah.
So you can reduce the demand on the metal filings by an alternative fill.
It's not very fun when you try and continue turning and you realize there's liquid of super glue
Yeah.
underneath.
Yeah.
And
That
you
makes a
realize
mess.
a few seconds
It tends to make a bit of a mess. Yeah.
as your mask has dots on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have new glasses for that very reason.
And the other option we have is the black CA glue. And I don't know if everyone knows that, but the black is a little bit rubbery. It has it doesn't harden the same way as the clear CA glue. So it will move a little bit with the wood if needed. And the black sort of for some pieces, if you have a lot of just bark inclusions, the black sort of keeps them in the wood and doesn't look real obvious that you're gluing it in.
Yeah.
So that's another option. Yeah. So that's the only question I got by email. So anyone have a topic they want to talk about today?
I have questions. This is Jay. I have questions about ring turning. I want to give it a try, and it looks very straightforward, but I have a couple of inquiries about tools. Craft Supplies sells a ring turning chuck that looks great, but I have something called a collet chuck made by Beal, and I think it would do the same thing, and I might as well save the money if I can. And I wanted to ask if anyone has experience with that. And Craft Supplies also sells something called a boring head that assists with finally drilling out the center of the wooden or plastic or whatever ring blank, drilling out the center of it on a sacrificial block that the boring head taps into the tailstock with a Morse taper. And I tried reading about it and I got confused because people were saying, well, this is old technology from metal lathes, and there were something called like drawbars, and it went over my head. There were even people saying that wood workers shouldn't be using wood lathes; they should be using metal lathes because they're superior. So wanted to ask the community.
Sounds like an engineer.
Off your list.
Well, from a mechanical point of view, they're correct, because a metal lathe is usually a much better piece of machinery than a wood lathe. However, they're not made for turning wood.
Yeah.
No.
And we don't need to turn within 10 thousandths of an inch.
No, not usually.
So
I've
does
never anyone turned a ring? I've never turned rings before.
I have, but I've used the ones that have the metal, the two-part metal backing that clips together. You make the blank, and then the metal parts clip together inside the ring, and then you shape and finish the surface. It's not just a wooden ring, but it's a
Yeah, they call that a two-part ring core. All the ones I'm looking at, there's a metal ring core, and
Yeah.
the wood blank either slips on top of the ring core or it's sandwiched by a two-part core that you either adhere together or thread together.
Yeah. And the ones
So
I they just sort of clip together, and that's where the 10,000th of an inch is sort of useful for that, because it needs to fit pretty well.
So I've never tried that, but I'm really curious about it. The rate at which wood is going to expand and contract is going to be very different than the metal. And it's a metal core, I think. And also my brother was a jeweler, and rings are fit to fingers, and they're these tapered things you put the ring on and bang on it to expand it and stuff like that. So Jay was talking about the drill size, and that's just got to match whatever the core is, I think.
Right. These core rings are not made to be precisely fit. A jeweler is not going to use them. So you have fixed sizes.
And then any guess about what tolerance you'd want between the wood ring and the metal core? Would you want some slop so that the metal core can expand differently?
The ones that I made were either hybrid blanks, aluminite, resin, or stabilized wood. And so the expansion and contraction of the wood is sort of overcome by the plastic in that case.
Oh, thanks. Interesting.
The videos that I've watched say use the driest wood you can or stabilize it, or there are ring blanks that are just pure acrylic or hybrid materials. A lot of people use CA finish, which I don't know, Mike, you would know. Does a CA finish encapsulate the moisture if it is pure wood?
Unless you sealed the backside, no.
Okay.
But as for Jay's question about the drill, that just needs to be, you just need a bit that creates a hole that matches your core, right?
Yeah.
There are not drill bits sized for ring sizes. Ring sizes are kind of like shoe sizes, and there are not drill bits sized for that. So you drill out an undersized hole into a blank on a sacrificial block, and then you use either a skew or this boring head that I mentioned Craft Supplies has, to minutely expand the inner hole, and then you keep test fitting it with the ring blank, or not the ring blank, the ring core. Does it fit yet? Nope. You make it a little wider. Does it fit yet? Nope. And if you make it too big, then you either throw it away or you make it just a little bigger and it fits the next size up ring core.
So do those two-part cores have edges on them?
Yes, they do.
So that would give you some protection.
That's the hardest thing to get right, the edge.
Oh.
Because you have to make a perfectly straight, perfectly perpendicular cut to get that to fit. And I found it was interesting. You all know I haven't, well, every tool is really good at something. And I really don't have much use for the carbide tools, except in making the rings. I found the only way I could actually do the inside accurately enough and the outside accurately enough was with one of the small square head carbide tools. And that worked. That's what that tool is really good at. Fine little cuts. Because
parting tool won't accomplish the same thing.
Well, a parting tool could, but it's a matter of you really want to be able to do the entire surface at a time. if you think about a parting tool, you're cutting into it. You're actually cutting through the wood. If you do it that way, a skew chisel would be the alternative, I think, because so you can actually mill the surface at all the width of the surface at the same time. Anyway,
with the carbide tool, you can go in from the side and
right, because it's a
use it.
small little
okay.
head,
and
and if you try to sand it off,
it's hard.
that's hard.
Yeah.
Whereas that little square head cutter just worked perfectly. And that's how I know that every tool is good for something.
I'm just looking
talked
at I'm looking at their website, and it seems to me that chuck is worth buying. Otherwise, it's holding that on is pretty difficult.
Yeah.
I
But the
talked to the guys. Go ahead, Mike.
The sacrificial block is another way to do it if you're not going to, pony up for the ring chuck. The trick is on the other side. You have to what you wind up doing is making a jam chuck to get the last of the sacrificial block off, and that's where you do your final sizing for width. So there's ways around it. There always is.
Well, Jay, let us know how you turn out and send us a picture of your ring.
Okay.
And if you
Uh,
buy that chuck and such, maybe you need to demonstrate it.
Yeah, there we go.
There we
There we
go.
go.
Okay.
February for Valentine's Day, making ring.
For people who aren't interested in ring turning but think it might be a good gift, I learned that Woodcraft has something called an inlay ring, where you're buying the whole ring there, and all you need to do is fill in a linear groove. So you could just glitter and CA or Purple Heart dust and epoxy or whatever, but it would be a low calorie project, and it would be a neat gift.
Yeah.
I need to go down and look at my ring box because I had no interest, but a friend of mine in St. Louis asked me to make a set of rings for his wedding rings, and he sent me all the tools. I said, okay, sure, and
Hey, he's going to fill you up.
so what he sent me was enough to do it. And then there was a vise and some of the measuring tools, a lot of things I didn't use. I thought I found better ways to do it. But anyway, they are cool. They do turn out very nicely. Let's see. I think I actually have some pictures. Anyway, go ahead. Moving on.
Anyone working on Christmas stuff yet?
Starting to think about it. My problem is I'm still trying to dig the shop out after downsizing my father. So I have like 3 table saws in the shop at the moment. So
Oh man.
So maybe you need to take less up on his table saw option jobs.
well, he was basically he's not confined to a wheelchair, so it basically boils down to he couldn't get into his shop because it was on the other level than what he lives on. So it was like, all right, his table saw was better than the one I currently had. And then he said, well, have you checked this area of the house? I said, no. And I found a brand new in the box Harbor Freight table saw. And it's like, oh, why do you have this, Dad?
Might want to leave
It was
in
on
the
sale.
Pretty much.
He's
Yeah, the
losing money if
coupon.
you didn't buy it,
20% off coupon.
Yeah.
The reason I ask is our November demonstrator is Kathleen Duncan, who she's going to do it on piercing, and we recorded last week, and it's she's doing an angel, and the angel wings will be pierced.
Wow.
Looks really, really cool. So
Is this for like on top of a tree or just a table decoration?
table decoration.
Ah, okay.
The demonstration is on piercing the wings. She already turned the angel, which is very, very simple. It's just a cone
Yeah.
with a head, and the wings turn out to. You start with a really, really thin bowl, and the goal is to get it down to 2 millimeters or less, and then
Oh, wow.
basically work. You shape them with a, well, the piercing is done with a high-speed dental tool. It has to go 300, 400,000 RPM.
Mm.
The cutting is done with a micromotor or, a good Dremel you could do it with. But so she's going to show all the tools and stuff, but they look really, really nice. And,
Yeah. No, I was going to get into pen turning for Christmas this year, but not sure. I'm willing to fork over for the a mandrel. Or Mike, you had on yours turning between two centers as opposed to using a mandrel.
Yeah, as opposed to the mandrel. Let's see. Trying to share the desktop. There's a couple of the rings that I made. Terrible pictures, but you can see that, they work out okay.
is that two different types of wood on the left one?
Yeah.
The right
Oh,
one?
this is actually green aluminite and red heart, I think. And this one is kind of the other side of it. But you can see the outside edges and the domes, and it worked okay.
Nice.
Yeah, they
Mike,
look a lot
when do
nicer
you-
than the rings on Craft Supply website. I like the dome, the dome design.
Well, you do all that, you cut your dome first and then you size the ring.
Right.
Somebody was asking about between center turning.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, the problem with a mandrel, or not the
Mhm.
problem with the mandrel, the observations that people have made with mandrels is that unless you turn really slow, you're going to wind up getting oscillation, which in extreme cases gives you an oval pen, which might not be a bad thing, but not always what people are looking for. Between center turnings is just two pointed pieces of steel that go directly into, and you use stainless steel bushings. Now, for the new pen turner, never trust your bushings. Always measure. Get a nice digital caliper. Because the bushings, as the first time you use them, they're probably pretty close. But the next time you use them, they won't be, because you will have sanded down the soft steel on your bushings.
Yeah.
Whereas the between center bushings are stainless, so they're going to stand up a little better. And you don't get the oscillation.
So what causes the oscillation? Is it the compression on the
Yeah.
mandrel?
Yeah, you got the force coming in this way, and you've got your tailstock. Now the alternative is to get one of the through tailstock live centers, where the bushing actually goes through the tailstock, and the tailstock sits up against, or not the bushing, the mandrel goes.
Yeah, the mandrel saver style.
Yeah, mandrel saver. That helps a lot too.
Yeah.
And Jason is showing a picture of it. You guys saw it?
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep. See, and that the head of that fits right up against the bushing, so you've minimized the distance that can oscillate. It's just,
Yeah, that the issue is correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what I'm hearing is the mandrel can oscillate just because it's not a real rigid body.
right.
And if you're turning between centers, you're basically counting on the wood and the sleeve to be the strength that keeps it from oscillating.
And that's a brass sleeve, and it's a piece of wood which is by definition flexible, and it takes remarkably little oscillation to give you a shape that is not round. So that's
so how does the pen saver address that?
what it does is that it allows you to think that the mandrel, if you use the entire mandrel, you wind up putting spacers between your pen blanks and the head and the tailstock. So you have this long distance that you don't need. It's just filled up with spacers because you didn't have anything else to do with the mandrel. the saver lets the mandrel go through the tailstock so that the tailstock fits right up against the bushing. So you've now gone from this much to that much. And always do one
Yeah.
section at a time. Don't put both pieces of the pen
Yeah.
on the mandrel.
Yeah.
Again,
So
longer is, yeah.
So here's the pen mandrel, and normally you're going to be, holding it out here on the end with the tailstock. With this, it's going to be somewhere in here with the tailstock.
Right.
So you're
Thank you, guys.
significantly shortening that.
So you've got the minimum length to allow variation.
Yeah.
And there used to be a company in Kentucky that made larger mandrels. They made an 8mm mandrel, which fits much tighter. For larger pens, the larger pen, you've got a bigger core.
Yeah.
And they say that the bushing will stabilize that. Having the larger mandrel helped a lot, but Berea, they were in Berea, Kentucky.
Yeah.
I think they're gone now.
Yeah, no, well, I saw a kit that basically had all of the pieces, the mandrel saver, the mandrel, and the trimmer for a reasonable price. And I was thinking I might just go that route.
Yeah, the mandrel saver is a good option to begin with if you're just starting out with it.
Yeah,
It's a lot faster too.
Yeah, oh, it is. Yeah.
This is Jay. I have what sounds like a dumb question, but I was on the web and came across people talking about kitless pen making, and I wanted to ask what that is. It sounds self-explanatory, but I mean, I assume people aren't fabricating their own pen transmissions and making their own pen tubes. And
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
why in the world would someone want that when pen kits already exist?
Because they're dumb. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
No, what you have is there are people that want to make entirely wooden pens. So they will drill out the bottom and shape the bottom and the top. You can thread it so you can have a threaded advancer to put the pen in and out. Very often they're fountain pen styles where you would just take the cap on and off. So there's not a matter of advancing the pen. I don't know.
Or people will also take an existing pen and take it apart and replace parts of it with wood.
Yeah.
Instead of starting from scratch.
I shouldn't make fun of them because normal people would ask us, why would we want to make pens when we could buy them?
Exactly.
Now you're getting a little too close to home there.
Why would someone make a wooden bowl when they could buy a porcelain one?
Yeah, because it's more fun and it's prettier. So, except to the potter who made the porcelain bowl, I guess.
Right.
Yes, good morning. My name is AJ. I just joined the group yesterday or a couple of days ago. I was wondering, do you break out into smaller groups to ask some questions for pure novices, or how does it work? Sorry to interrupt.
No, go for it. That's the whole point of this, is to ask questions and get the wisdom of the group. Also,
it is. My questions are so basic. I would be reluctant to waste the time of 6 or 7.
Don't go there. I'm a newbie too. So don't go there.
The advantage
I can benefit from any novice questions too.
Yep.
Okay.
Go for it. And welcome.
The advantage of this format is that you don't have to make all the mistakes yourself. Someone has already made all the mistakes. Now you can add new ones later on, but
sure.
If you have questions, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, as well as the forum is a good place to ask, and you probably find someone that you could connect with, and even go to their shop and be able to have a session and ask a lot of questions like that.
Okay, well, I might do that. I think my questions are really too big to
go for it.
Oh, ask your questions. Besides, you probably stump us.
If we break out laughing, don't take it personally.
Yeah.
You can always mute me or shut me down when I'm getting too rudimentary. So I bought my. I've always wanted to do woodworking for a long time, and my former boss has done a lot of it. He helped my son many years ago, build a ukulele from scratch, and they've done some pens and some tops. Anyway, so I finally took the plunge and bought, at his advice, a Laguna 1216. And I've got myself set up with, the benchtop grinder from Raycon. I got the CBN grinding wheels, from Woodturner's Wonders. Early in the pandemic, I did my research and it said Robert Sorby is the bomb. So I was foolish enough, I guess. I'm not sure what the right word is. I bought a set of 8 Robert Sorby tools.
Oh,
Then
nice.
someone said that's a really idiotic move. You ought to start out with a pair of Benjamin Best and learn how to sharpen them before you destroy the really nice tools. So then I went and bought a bunch of those, or 4 or 5 of those. During the summer weather, I didn't do a whole lot, but I've started now doing some stuff. And I guess my first question is, if you're mounting a small blank, the kind of the 4x4x2 blanks, is it best to mount it with the drive center and live center with a screw or a faceplate? I can't determine which is the best way to do it because I've tried a few different ways and I can never quite get it to rotate true. I did manage to make something, but it's pretty horrible right now.
Before someone answers that, it's AJ, right?
Yeah.
Welcome, AJ. I'm glad you showed up.
Thank you.
I wanted to just tell you that there are quite a few local and national retailers that give Northwest Woodturners members a 10% discount. So make sure that you get signed up, like Penn State Industries and Craft Supplies USA, Woodcraft, locally and nationally, Rockler. Just make sure that you register with them so that you get your 10% discount. I recently made an order and they gave me the 10% discount even on items that were on sale, which surprised me. A lot of retailers, they'll give a discount, but not on sale items. So I just wanted to
turn off your membership card, because if they don't know you like a Woodcraft, they will ask to see your card. You can do that.
Yeah, I've done that. Good advice, although I've dropped a fair bit of money without it, but good advice moving forward. Thank you.
All right, it doesn't end, right? The spending is not over.
But you're down payment
to it.
Yeah.
So anyway, back
Yeah, I gotta figure out how to print off my card.
Yeah.
Does that just go into the website and print?
Yeah.
Yep.
But back to AJ's question, you want to turn a small bowl?
Well, I'd ultimately like to get to the point where I'm turning bigger bowls. So I'm starting out with a small bowl like this one.
Right.
Just to get started.
Do you have a 4-jaw chuck?
I did get the Nova G3 chuck with all the accoutrements that come with it.
Yeah.
In fact, since you guys like to share war stories, I'll share a very quick one with you that you'll get a kick out of. So I came across this video about turning green wood. We had a cherry tree fall down in our neighborhood, in our front yard recently. So without doing a ton of research, I learned that theoretically you can take the green wood and turn a bowl out of it. I'm gonna allow me to indulge you for a moment. This would be funny.
I was gonna say it pretzelized on him.
Yeah, we're heading for a splitting story, I think, here.
Either splitting or chipping, or potato chipping.
Potato chipping. I haven't heard that term.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's basically it follows the grain and looks like a potato chip instead of a round bowl.
Oh, okay.
So I got to this point with the chainsaw. All right.
Yeah.
And then again, keep in mind, all I have is the lathe and the grinder. That's the extent of my woodworking tools. I have a circular saw. So then I attempted to turn. I actually managed to mount this as is, the other half of this.
Yeah.
On the lathe without I guess rounding it out. Only later did I realize you're supposed to use, I guess, a bandsaw to make it a more round blank. I actually got to this point. But it took most of the afternoon through the late evening because it was so. Anyway, to answer your question, make some bowls. I don't have a bandsaw yet.
You don't need a bandsaw. You don't need a bandsaw. You can chop the corners off with a chainsaw if you got it. Otherwise, that's the way I've done it. It's just that you're just doing a lot of air cutting for a while.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I decided to start. There's somebody I think at Rockler said you probably ought to start small with this. So, which is good advice. So that's kind of where I came to. Do you mount it with a drive center, with the screw thing, or the faceplate? But yes, I do have a chuck which I've managed to create a kind of a, not a very good tenon, but I've managed to create one. But it never does quite run very true.
I think what most of us do is the process is you start between centers. So you don't mount it, you just take your square block between centers and round it that way. And then before you take it off between centers, you put your tenon on the tailstock side to match your G3 chuck. And then you should be in good shape. It'll be well centered, and when you turn it around to put it in your chuck, it should be pretty round.
Yeah, one thing, AJ, one thing, keep in mind, AJ, is when you're putting it into the chuck, you're not worried about the diameter, you're worried about the shoulder on which the top of the chuck sits. Because that's the part that's going to cause it to run true or not true.
Okay. Hold your bowl up again. Okay. That tenon, there's no dovetail on your tenon, and a G3 chuck has dovetail jaws. Also, your tenon is a little thick, because what happens is it will sit into the chuck, and it bottoms out, so the jaws never really close around the top. Okay.
Okay.
So just take a ruler and measure the depth of your jaws, and make sure that your chuck's never any deeper than that. Also, you need, if you have a skew chisel, because in that set of Sorby tools, I'm sure there is one, just use your skew chisel, and that'll cut close enough to the dovetail angle.
Yeah. I see. When you're mounting the initial block, another piece of confusion I had was the so when the block is a block and you're kind of going that way, it doesn't fully connect. So do you seemingly use a mallet and drive it in?
Yes.
Do you? I mean, that just seems well with the harder.
Or you can use your tailstock and just crank your tailstock.
Then you kill your tailstock. Take your mallet and drive it in.
Yeah,
but you can also approach.
But never a steel tool, always a wooden tool.
So those that drive center, there's actually a little Allen screw in the side, so you can make that point a little bit shorter. It can slide in so that you don't have to drive it quite as far into the wood. When you're working with the green wood, you really want that deep penetration, and you're going to lose some wood because it drives into it. So you're going to anticipate cutting some of that off later in the process. But on a really hard wood, like the pieces you bought from Rockler, probably, you might want to shorten that up so that you don't have to drive as deep into it.
Got it.
And as far as beginning, my recommendation on YouTube, it would be Worth the Effort Woodworking. He has a couple of really good videos. Your first bowl. So my sons are like 13 down to 6, and my two oldest wanted to turn a bowl, and I made them sit and watch that video. It's kind of long content, but really in depth. Worth the Effort wood turning your first bowl. And tree to a bowl in one day is another really good video that goes through the wood processing all the way to turning a green bowl. But you're off to a great start. You went all out on equipping your setup. I would say a bandsaw would be another really good investment. And you don't have to go crazy. You can get a decent 10-inch bandsaw, benchtop bandsaw, that'll do a lot of what you need to do without really breaking the bank.
Okay.
Yeah, the big thing on the bandsaw is just make sure that it's got at least 6 inches worth of throat.
Okay. If I can ask another question?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay. So this guy right here, the round nose scraper. Right. So when it came new, it has this. Well, it has I guess you call it a heel, and then it has a bevel here. It has both, but then I've seen part of my conundrum is there's so many videos, I don't know which ones to trust.
My Zoom meeting.
Is one video seems to suggest that you grind that, I guess, small bevel completely off. And I have not been able to get this to work properly.
What
I'm
you
not
have
sure.
there is a negative rake scraper.
Okay.
Okay. The bevel on top actually improves the cutting action. Now,
Yeah.
you say you can't get it to work properly? What's it
Well, I
supposed to
have
do?
not succeeded in getting, like I was trying to use it in here, and obviously did not end up using a scraper at all. It's just quite rough, just from the bowl gouges that whatever the 1/2 inch or 3/8 inch bowl gouge I had. And then I read that you can use these scrapers to smooth things out. I cannot get, I didn't want to damage the tool, I guess I would say, since I read that some people just take it off completely and then use that Veritas burnisher or scraper thing to get the, which I haven't tried yet.
Get the burr on it.
You put the cutting edge, actually, it's like a card scraper, but
yeah, I have it. But
Veritas will actually bend the metal up to make a hook. And that actually is what does the cutting. Now,
So there are two different kinds of scrapers, like Mike said at the beginning. Conventional scrapers that don't have a bevel on the top, and negative rake scrapers do. They're used differently.
Okay.
And so somebody better than I should explain the uses of negative rake and conventional scrapers.
This juncture, when I'm kind of just getting started trying to figure out how to just make stuff, what should I do with this? Should I sharpen it in its current form, and should I do it with the Wolverine? I have the Wolverine one way and the berry grind thing. So should I guess, how do I proceed to use this in a useful fashion?
Yeah, if you sharpen that with on the platform for the Wolverine, it will create that little bit of a hook, and it doesn't last very long because it's such a really, I mean, you have to have a magnifying glass to see that hook, that cutting edge.
Okay.
If you rub your thumb on the edge, you can kind of feel that it's like a little bit of a catch. It's a burr, and it's only going to take, depending on the wood, 10 seconds, and you could wear that hook off. And you go back and you grind it again to reestablish that burr. And it's not like it's going to be sandpaper smooth. It can help smooth out tool marks, like little ridges that you leave in it, but it's not going to be a perfectly smooth finish like you might have been thinking. In fact, a really good cut with a bowl gouge, if you do it really well, is probably going to be a smoother finish than you're going to get with a scraper.
Hey, Jason, are you suggesting he put a burr on the negative rake scraper, or that he grind the secondary bevel off?
Put a burr on the negative rake scraper.
Yeah.
And that way,
so
with the negative rake, you're going to hold the tool pretty much flat, horizontal to the bed. With a regular scraper, you have to kind of tip it down to be able to engage that hook. So having that second bevel on top allows you to hold it flat instead of pointed down into the bowl.
When you're sharpening this, are you just sharpening this only from the heel, or are you sharpening both the bevel and the heel?
Just the bevel, just the heel.
Yep.
Just the heel portion. Okay.
Yeah. Because then it rolls the burr up onto that curved surface.
Yeah. And I assume this should also be done on the 180, not the 80?
Doesn't really matter.
If you're going
to, some would say the coarser the wheel, the more of a burr you get.
Yeah, but the rougher the burr will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is the advantage of the Veritas burnisher, because you wind up with sort of a knife edge on that.
Yeah. Okay.
But if you're using it for hollowing, then that coarser burr will last you a little longer.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the negative rake scraper tends to be less aggressive than a conventional scraper. One of the reasons you have to point a conventional scraper that doesn't have that double bevel downward is that if you have a catch, it rotates the tool away from the wood like this, and it minimizes any catastrophe that might happen from a catch. If you have a conventional scraper with a flat top and no bevel on the top, and you introduce it to the wood like this, and it catches on something, it rotates it deeper into the wood like this, and you have a catastrophic event.
It's called self-feeding.
So you need to have, if you want a more aggressive cut, you use a conventional scraper and you point it down so that it rotates out of the cut if you have a catch. And you'll be much happier. You won't be happy the first time you point it up and you have a catch. You'll probably not want to turn wood for a while. It's a dramatic event.
Yeah. In general, I would say you're better with the negative rate as you have it. Keep that. Just learn to use it.
And on sharpening, you're going to set your platform. It looked like that was around 80 degrees, 70 to 80 degrees.
Yeah.
And really just takes one swipe, just put in there one swipe and you've got your burr. So.
And is it true? I don't know if it's called conventional wisdom or otherwise, but I seem to have concluded that you want to use the Varigrind jig for everything except the spindle roughing gouge. Is that?
Right.
So
that's sharpened on the platform.
Okay. So this goes on the Varigrind.
No,
No,
just flat on the platform.
What AJ, what do you mean by the Varigrind?
The
hole.
The tool into?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the thing you stick the tool into and then rest it on a fulcrum and move it around the wheel, that's for gouges.
Yeah.
Except the spindle roughing gouge.
Except the spindle roughing gouge, right?
Right.
For scrapers, you wanted just the flat platform?
Gotcha. Yeah, I've got that set up. I just wasn't sure which setup to use for this particular negative, what do you call it? Negative rake scraper.
And an easy hint is to use a black magic marker, put it on the edge there, and you'll see where you're grinding. But again, it's just one or two swipes, and you'll get your burr. And
actually, with a negative rake scraper, you don't have to actually go back to the grinder at all. If you've got a diamond card, you just run it across the top bevel. That knocks off the burr. Then you go back to your burnisher and put a new hook on it.
Okay.
So, this is why you join a club.
Yeah.
Put two wood turners in a room, you'll get 3 opinions on everything.
Yeah.
And we're planning a sharpening class coming up, hopefully in the next couple months, and we'll take you through the basics. But I think you signed up too late to get into the spindle class. It just filled up, I think, the day after you and I talked. We're going to start the basic spindle and bowl class with a basic sharpening of the tools that you use in that class. So,
is the bowl class full?
Both classes are full. Yeah.
Okay.
So
is there a material, on the subject of many opinions, and I'm sure I'm opening up a Pandora's box here, but does your organization have videos or guidelines? I cannot get. There's so much confusion, at least from what I've found, around using dust collection mechanisms. So in my specific instance, I'm just trying to do bowls, and of course, all the official literature, all the publications say very important. But then, of course, you look at the videos, and very few to nobody is using it. And then someone else would say, you only need it when you're sanding. When you're in the initial stage, you don't need it. So I have a respirator, I have a face mask, I have a Festool CT Mini, but it's not really useful for this situation. Are there resources that? I mean, I don't know how to proceed.
I think first of all, dust collection for chips just doesn't work. I mean, the best thing for dust collection is dust, and that's when you're sanding. And
if you use a sanding lubricant, you don't need it then.
Yeah, there you go.
If you're turning dry wood, or if you're turning wood with bark on it, sometimes you can see a lot of dust coming off of the dry wood or the bark. And you probably do need some sort of a dust collector during that time. But if you're turning wet wood, most of the time you don't need it until
there's 18 people on right now, and there's probably 18 different ways that they're doing dust collection.
That's what kind of what I'm. I mean, I know that you have to make your own decision, but does the group in general, does this august and illustrious group, when you guys are turning bowls? No, you guys are experienced woodworkers, let's face it. So do you guys actually do dust collection at the lathe with dry wood when you're bowl turning?
With dry wood, yes.
For sanding, yes.
Only when sanding.
So
Only when
Only
I,
when sanding.
I
You
use
don't-
a big dust collector on my lathe because my father had emphysema. And
Yeah.
I grew up with him hacking and coughing and gasping for breath. And it made a big impression on me. And I'm really glad I have it. But as you heard, you don't need it that often. If you're turning good sound wood, stuff that doesn't have bark and stuff like that on it, like the bowl you showed us,
Yeah.
you don't need it when you're using your cutting tools. You just really need the dust collection when you're sanding. And if you wet sand, like Mike suggested, put walnut oil or something like that on it and use the sandpaper on that, you'll get a lovely finish and it won't spread dust in the air. So you've got a mask or something like that and you do that, I think you'd be in good shape.
And as far as hazards go, all woods are not created equal.
Yeah, I read that.
When you're turning walnut, you need to be very careful. But also the woods of the Dalbergeron family, ebony, rosewood, persimmon, Paduke, it's not a Dalbergeron, but they contain things that will affect you badly over time.
So in those situations, you are using some kind of dust collection?
I wear
And it's
a
used
mask.
during-
I wear a mask
during
all the
yourself?
time anyway. So
Yeah.
So at
the
the end
other
of the-
thing that I like to do is I'm working in my garage and I have my garage door and then I also have a man door out the back of the garage. And for as much of the year as possible, when I'm turning, I'll open the garage door like 6 inches and open the back door with a box fan so that I have a cross breeze that will carry off a lot of the fine dust.
Yeah.
I also have one of the ceiling mounted dust filters, air filters. You might be able to, no, not quite,
Yeah.
got too much stuff in the way, but that's another thing that helps with the really fine dust, which
I've
that's
got one
where
of
the
those
health
on my
hazard
ceiling.
comes from, is the really fine dust much more than the coarse stuff, which is why a lot of people say mostly when you're sanding, because you know, a big wood chip, a big shaving, you know, that's not going to go through your nose into your lungs.
Yeah.
No, what I've been doing is wearing this guy, and then also putting this on top. I can't tell if that's overkill or
No,
that's good.
okay,
that's good.
the
That's
face
what I
shield
do.
is more for collision protection.
Yeah.
That's going to protect you against the piece of wood that flies off the lathe. That the smaller mask is going to protect you against the dust.
I can show you a picture of what I use for dust collection.
that'd be great.
And Harvey is a safety manager for Cascade. And he'll give you the thumbs up, the thumbs down.
All the official.
I wanted to say that I'm a respiratory therapist, and I've been a potter most of my life, and I've been wood turning for a few years, and I think dust collection and protecting yourself from fumes from chemicals is the most important thing. I've seen many artists who've gotten cancer, who've gotten sick because they didn't protect their lungs or their hands. So I believe it's critical from that perspective, from a medical perspective.
Absolutely.
But that this mask and shield is sufficient, or do you believe in some more full-blown dust collection?
It depends on the environment you're working in. I mean, if you're working in a closed environment inside, you definitely want to get that dust out for the times that you're working in the studio and you don't have a mask on, because you're not going to have that mask on all the time and the dust will settle in the room.
Right.
So that's important. But for turning, when you're turning, I think that mask that you have is really good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another thing that works really well is just a box fan with a furnace filter in front of it.
Yep.
That's what I use in my house all the time, actually. Yeah.
It's a cheap
That's what I use
alternative.
in my house. A poor man's air filter.
Yeah.
It beats the $250 that it costs, or $300 to get one of those ceiling mounted things.
Yeah.
This is Jim. Are you seeing that picture that I put up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
good.
it hooks up to a 4-inch line that goes to my simple single cheapo Harbor Freight dust collector. And I run this thing all the time when I'm turning. And I experimented with different mesh sizes on this screen so that it would catch the big stuff, so it wouldn't go in and plug up my line, and was small enough and big enough so it would let everything else through. And it works really, really well. And it's a cardboard box, as you can see, with a store-bought thing in it. And I did this as a prototype, thinking that, hey, if this works, then I'll build something permanent. Well, I've been using this for like 15 years. So
that is a really great solution.
Yeah.
So I was going to say that looks like one of those plates that you put in a contractor saw. Is that what it is?
I don't recall. Actually, I bought it at Rockler.
That's where I got mine. I actually am getting rid of that saw, so I'm probably going to use that. I can reuse that plate to make one of these. This is a great idea.
Does that orientation? Will that orientation work also for bowls?
Yes. It's mounted on one of those roller stands that you use for outfeed table on a table saw. So I can adjust the height up and down, and then I can move it back and forth, so I can get as much, I can put it anywhere I want, and whatever height I think is right, and get it out of the way when I'm doing the inside of a bowl, because I got to swing around the back of the lathe with my bowl gouge.
Yeah.
So it's very versatile. And then I've got on the board that goes into the roller stand, I put some holes in it so it supports this work light that I got up here.
Got it.
So Jim,
So is
does
that-
that thing have a fan in it, or is it just the black thing, just the mount for the tube that goes to the dust collector?
It's just a mount for the tube.
Thank you. That's
And
neat.
what is the opening of the screen mesh there? Is that 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch?
I think it's 1/4 inch, because 1/2 inch was letting the big curls through that come off wet wood, and they plugged up the hose too quickly. This one, I never have trouble with the hose plugging up.
Thank you.
Okay, we're a little bit past time. Cindy had a question about, glad she brought up open shop time. And we have an open shop planned at Dave's on November 14th. So AJ, if you can make it, that's a good place to come out and talk to a bunch of us that'll be there, and also see one setup.
Yeah, no, I think
you'd
long
be
ago I
welcome.
joined your 10 or 12 series classes. I feel like I might have visited that shop during one of those classes that you did. I wasn't sure what the protocol is with the pandemic, that you guys are still doing in-person classes. Sounds like you are.
We're just starting to open up. It's a nice long open space. So we're well within the state guidelines of a gathering for pandemic.
Yeah. Okay.
And AJ, you'd be welcome to come out before then if you just want to come out and spend an hour or two with me. And this is Dave Wood talking.
Okay.
You're welcome to just give me a call and you can come out. We can go through a lot of this hands-on in person.
Okay.
The fast way.
I'd
You're
appreciate
doing it all right, but like me, you start out trial and error. You're not sure if you're doing it right. So we can help you eliminate a lot of these option questions that you have.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, it's better to learn it right the first time than to have to unlearn it.
Unlearn it. Correct.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% on board with that. I just because of the pandemic, have not had the resources or ability to. My main focus is safety, mine and Dare, and I do want to work on this with my 14-year-old son. So that hence the safety-oriented questions.
Yeah.
On a safety note, get in the habit of wearing a smock or something that you leave in the shop.
Yeah.
Nothing goes into the house.
Yeah.
Wear a hat, because the hair, particularly when sanding, the hair picks up the dust. Unless you take a shower every night before you go to bed, the dust goes to the pillow, from the pillow into your eye. And it's, these are all allergen steps, but protect yourself. Most of it's common sense sometimes.
Yeah. When when you're in a shop where the shop is in a regular garage and there's all that other stuff around, do you tarp it or cover it up, or what do you do with the rest of your stuff in the garage?
Keep an air compressor around so you can blow all
Yeah.
the dust off.
Or
It's a function of how dusty you mind your car.
Yeah.
My garage hasn't been a car in 20 years, so it's really not a problem.
Yeah, neither is mine.
A battery-powered leaf blower
Yes.
is a really helpful thing. You can open up the big doors, blow it all out, and have a box fan to help get it out. But that's a good thing to do on a regular basis because you're never going to catch all of the dust, and it'll accumulate here and there, and you can kind of blow it all out, and that helps.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate your advice.
Well, welcome, AJ, and thanks everyone for participating this morning. And
Thank you, Roger, for setting it up.
Yep,
Yeah.
as always.
Thanks, everybody.
we'll make sure.
Are
you
we
make
going to use
the,
the
meeting.
same invite number next month?
What's
Or you
that?
send out a new one?
The Zoom link will stay the same,
Okay.
and it's October and November 21st is our next one.
Okay.
Thanks again.
All right.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Thanks,
Have a
guys.
good weekend.
Bye.